All right. What's happening, LKGDC? Okay, hi, I'm Naushikha, and I'm going to talk about something completely different from what the other speakers were talking about today, right? So I have branched out from game dev and into a different sort of field, which is XR, and we are focusing on the enterprise sector, right? So what I'm going to talk about today is beyond reality, AI native XR, and the future of human-digital interaction. So before anything else, let's look at what I'm going to talk about here. So I would like to call it the chapters, right? So we're looking at 7 chapters here. First, let's look at the origins, where I'll talk about myself and my background, and the venture, where I'll talk about my business, the space I'm in, right? And then we'll talk about the next interfaces of human-digital interaction, and we'll go into, followed by the promise of AI, and the global shift that we are witnessing right now. And sixth, we'll be talking about how you can leverage on these particular trends, what you can practically use for your workflows, right? And now, in the last chapter, we'll just look back at the entire discussion or the keynote, and we'll look at all the summary or the takeaways from this. So moving on, so the chapter 1, the origins. So who am I and what is my background? So I am what you call a tech generalist, right? So I basically tinker around with any sort of technology that I can lay my hands on. It can be hardware, software, it could be working with servers, networking, anything, right? Right now my focus is on XR, but I have had a diverse experience in all these fields from the ground up. So currently I'm the CTO of Zenith Xperience, right? So in 2021, I worked at Simcentric on a product called SAFTAC, which is a military tactical simulation platform, which is built for VR headsets, right? So basically, if you have played something like Rainbow Six Vegas or something similar, you'd know you would have a mission, you'll have a team, and you'll have an instructor that will guide you through things. So like basically, you all play in the same space, and you do these tactical simulations. Let's say it's a rescue mission. You simulate it, you play it, and you basically go through that, and it helps. These are very different use cases, right? We are using game development for enterprise use cases. So what this does is it helps the military save up on ammunition and everything else that is involved on training these particular scenarios, right? So there I was basically debugging the Unreal Engine at the source level, so I don't think any of the developers would get the source code of the game engine right here, right? And then look into the bugs in it. So when you go into that level, you'd have to contact UE developers and then work with them to resolve certain bugs, right? So that's one thing, and then again, working on compiling the engine from scratch and developing sort of custom modifications and features into it. So that's the level I've gone into. So in 2023, I won the MBQSA in Sri Lanka, the gold medal, and in 2023, Epic December, I won the sole gold medal for in Sri Lanka for my vessel traffic simulation project, which is called VTVR, vessel traffic monitoring in VR. So it's a real-time vessel traffic monitoring solution. So basically what it does is, what I demoed to the guys at Hong Kong was getting all the ships out there, the vessels, and simulating it in real time in a metaverse, right? So, and there are other international awarded projects that I have done in Germany and Dubai and so on and so forth. We can talk about it if we meet after the keynote. So moving on, if you go further back, in 2008, I started with Visual Basic. Anyone here worked on Visual Basic? Show of hands. No one? Anyone heard of Visual Basic? All right, cool. Okay. So I started in grade 7, right? Very early on, 2008. So little by little, when I get into the engine, I basically worked with DirectX 8 and built my first game for the exhibition, right? For my school exhibition at the college. It was called Ananda Abhiman, the 125th anniversary. So there I worked with models such as Have you heard of the games Quake and Half-Life? Yes, I believe everyone has heard of it. So using BSPs, binary space partitioning, and MDL files to render things in Visual Basic, right? So this is very different to using Unity, right? Because primarily the reason was my PC couldn't handle Unity back in the day. So I just used Visual Basic 6, and it was very interesting because you would have to script cutscenes by code. It's a very tedious process, but kind of weirdly fun in a way. So yeah, so that's a little bit about my background. So, and also a fun fact, if you're a metal fan, let's hang out, because it's very hard to find metal fans. Any show fans, metal fans? Only one guy over here. Anyone else who's hardcore? Right, because I'm mentioning this because, like game development, the metal community is also a niche community in Sri Lanka, right? It's always cool to meet with new people who love that. So, yeah, moving on. Chapter 2, the venture. So, what are we doing at ZX, right? So basically, in 2024, I started my own company, Zenith Xperience. And we are basically a little bit different. We are not making games for the end clients. We do, but that's not our primary focus. We are making tools and platforms for enterprise XR and spatial applications and use cases. So we serve clients across USA, Germany, UK, and Australia, and SL, and soon to be worldwide with the launch of our platform, which is Luna. Right? Luna is our no-code WebXR platform. So recently, last week, we just launched the recent KFC campaign. How many of you guys saw the campaign? Anyone saw the campaign? They gave out a biryani for 89 rupees because it's 30th anniversary of KFC. So that was the first KFC that was established in Sri Lanka 30 years ago. So for that, we did an AI campaign, and it was very, we launched the campaign, and like 2-3 hours in, and everything was sold out, right? So that was made using Luna, our platform. So moving on, we also make apps for AR glasses, which is like a highlight of my keynote here, right? So we are basically using AI, voice control, and spatial feedback in these applications, and other interesting classified work, which you'll be able to soon witness pretty soon this year. I have added a sneak peek of that screenshot right in the middle. That's something that we are working on actively. And right, so moving on to chapter 3. Now we are really getting into the discussion, right? So what is the next interface here of human-digital interaction? Now, when I thought about it, I just searched it up, and I was like looking for evolution of HCI. If you know about HCI, it's human-computer interaction. Basically, we are talking about UIs and ways to interact with the computer, right? So I found interesting images, so I'll just share a few with you. So the first thing I found was this, right? As you can see, we started off on punch cards, keyboard and mouse, yada yada, GUI, semantic recognition, and finally, this area we are going for Neuralink. So these are quite a leap, right? I mean, if you think about Elon Musk and his shady practices. So Neuralink, that is a bit dangerous, right? So I was thinking, okay, look, this might not be practical, right? So like, we won't straight away jump to Neuralink because mass adoption of Neuralink is, I believe it should be decades away, right? Not everyone would be willing to install a chip on your brain. So, but it will be very helpful for certain kind of people who need assistance, right? But for the mass majority, that's not going to happen anytime soon. So this is a more practical perspective, right? So we're looking at CLI GUI, same story, but we go from touch to immersive, right? So right now you don't see this evolution because it's a little bit muddied by the introduction of AI, right? Everyone is talking about AI, so you don't see this growth of XR in the background. So what I'm arguing here is that if you think about this, like logical think about this, we went from smartphones, and then we have wearables, smartwatches, right? I think everyone is using smartwatches, right? I think most of you must have smartwatches by now. And most of you, like it's heavily being adopted right now, like Meta Ray-Bans, like AR glasses, right? So the next step, if you think about it logically for a bit, you would see that this is trending so much if you look at the numbers, right? People are ready to buy Meta Ray-Bans or AR glasses more it's more so than if you're buying like VR headsets. I'm ready to argue that like it's it's really the sales. If you look at the numbers, AR glasses would sell more, right? A funny thing, I even saw a monk in Sri Lanka having Meta Ray-Ban glasses. So like, even the monks are faster than us in adapting this technology, right? So this is where we are headed, right? So the next interface is AR glasses. So I would like to show you some competitors around this space. Like Xreal is what you see on your right is one of the applications that we have made using Xreal. So Xreal is one of the main competitors. They have been around for a long time. And then you have Vichera. You have Spectacles by Snapchat. And then you have Meta Ray-Bans, obviously, but they don't have displays. You have version 1 without the display, version 2 with a display in a single eye. And then moving on, you have Galaxy XR. They're trying to get into the space. Android XR, obviously the OS, right? And Project Aura, which is a combination of Xreal and a partnership between Xreal and Google, right? So that is coming out this year. So if you look at the timeline of events, you're seeing that 2026, 2027 might be the age of AR glasses where it will come into, you would see more mainstream adoption of it. So moving on. So this is a demo video of using the Spectacles by Snapchat, right? So as you can see, what I'm coming to is we are looking at an era of spatial computing. So imagine like you wear your headset, just like any other app, it can understand what's happening around you, right? And then react to things, and you can basically anchor things around you and use it in an easy way, unlike compared to VR glasses, right? So it's, if you have used, how many of you guys have used AR glasses? There's one? So yeah, how many of you all are in possession of AR glasses? Anyone? All right, okay, cool. So, so it's happening, and that's what we are looking at right now, right? So we are now going to get a little bit deep on this, like the key technologies that make this whole thing possible, what we're looking at is graphics rendering and computer vision. Now, when we talk about game development throughout the whole day, I think all of y'all were talking about game development and things associated with that. It's all like rendering, right? You're not looking at computer vision unless you're doing something like very, very niche, like some obscure sort of like a game which analyzes your face or something, which would be very interesting, by the way. So these two technologies are what control the XR industry. So these two go hand in hand. So I would like to think about graphics rendering as the output from the system, right? Where you see the system giving you indication of what's happening around you, and the computer vision bit is the input. These technologies, if you look at the algorithms and how they work and all the things, they go very, like they are parallel. They go hand in hand. They're sometimes intertwined because we are working with spatial coordinates. It's all 3D, so even computer vision is 3D. So these two tech are what makes these XR possible, right? Now, with that in mind, now that we have covered a little bit of the basics of XR, right? I wanted to establish that so that you guys would know what we're talking about here. So like, if you come into chapter 4, I'm talking about here, what was the promise of AI, right? What were you promised when they pitched AI? I believe in 2021 or so, we saw mainstream adoption of ChatGPT, right? That's where it all blew up. We got ChatGPT version, I think, 3. And we were given a promise where, okay, anything is possible with this, right? And what is really possible is, I would argue that AIs are LLMs in disguise, right? Now, if you ask a regular person, what is an AI, right? Anyone can answer? Like, what is an AI? What is AI? The first thing that comes into your mind these days is like LLMs, right? Like, it's generative AI, basically. But AI, what I'm trying to come at is, AI is basically more than that. When you're looking at XR, you're looking at different sorts of AI. We're looking at reinforcement learning. There are different types of it. But with this whole hype train that has occurred with these LLMs, we are losing track of what's actually happening in AI, right? So the point I'm coming at is my focus is not on LLMs, but I will focus on LLMs. There are practical use cases of it. I would argue about that too. But we would look at the tangible benefits of it, right? I mean, if you look at the news of AI, you would see that if you're up to date on things, GitHub Copilot is increasing their cost. They are reducing the usage that you can use. If you look at Claude, they're doing the same. And if you look at US sort of news, you see that 50% of the infrastructure that they were originally planning, they're not taking in. Because the CapEx and the OpEx, AI requires lots of energy. It can't be done in this short amount of time. And also cooling requirements, right? That is not possible. So if you look at the end of the day, if you're looking at businesses, it boils down to, hey, are you breaking even or are you making a profit, right? AI is not making a profit right now, but we can leverage on certain things and use it practically, right? So I would not say LLMs are like totally bad. You can use them for certain things. But there are better stuff out there that is affecting the growth of XR. So moving on from that, right? I would like to share a certain video on AI. Basically, this is a take from Take-Two Interactive CEO who's working on GTA 6, right? And yeah. So that's basically Take-Two Interactive's take on AI. So basically, what you're looking at is idea is that you can't, create new stuff with AI. I mean, you can, pick certain things and maybe make something new, but I believe humans are better at creation and creativity, right? So, but for prototyping, AI is great. Okay, so I'm thinking that the promise of AI, or what AI should be, we can think of it as, I mean, you guys know Cortana from Halo, right? So Cortana is like basically, I would say, the pinnacle of AI. Like I'm just saying this as an example because of the community that's there here. So think about this, right? Imagine an AI that natively understands your XR spaces, right? So something that goes along with this is, I think the closest you can look at it is maybe Tesla's navigation AI, which can understand the surrounding environment, right? So I think that's the best out there that's in production that can understand this, but I don't think it's public knowledge right at the moment. But this is the goal that we should go for in XR, right? Basically understanding your space and not waiting for prompts, no LLMs, like a ground-up implementation of AI that can understand and truly be in the space and sort of mimic sentience without having any loopholes, right? So yeah, so I've just put some idea out there, like, do you think we can actually achieve this level of AI in 2026, right? Can we create a proper Cortana using the technology available right now? So yeah, that's something to ponder about. Now, so with that in mind, we move on to the global shift, right? What are we seeing? What are the other companies doing? What are they focusing on? Like, what are they putting their time on to get some practical results out of the systems, like where we have come from with the LLMs and the advancement of reinforcement learning, things like that, and what are we seeing as inevitable, right? So let's look at the global shift. So moving on, we are looking at the intersection of the said fields that I was talking about. I was talking about graphics, and I was talking about vision and AI, all these three being intertwined, right? This is sort of like the future. I mean, this video with the NVIDIA is the best. How many of you guys heard of physical AI? Anyone heard of physical AI? Okay, right, cool. So NVIDIA is working on their Omniverse thing, right? And one practical thing that we have personally been involved in is creating digital twins, right? So when you create digital twins, you get massive amounts of data, right? So massive amounts of data when you interact, connect with, let's say, enterprise solutions. Like let's say we create a digital twin of what we can see right here, the port, like Colombo port, right? So there'll be massive data around it, right? So all of these data will be fed through the system, and we can use that data to train on, and we can show better parts of workflows, certain things. I won't get into much detail on that, but digital twins is something we have practically worked on in our company. So let's have a look at physical AI. It's a small video, so you can get where NVIDIA is at on this front. I think this video was released 2 months ago or something, so it's latest. So NVIDIA is working on something called NVIDIA Cosmos, right? What they're trying to do is bring all of these together. Right? You have computer vision, graphics, and AI. So mainly they're focusing on reinforcement learning, right? So all these robots that you see, like Unitree, they're all being trained on these environments, right? That's how they're able to get running quickly. So when it comes to training these things, you need lots of data, right? Otherwise you can't get favorable outcomes. So like to create lots of data, you would need to simulate real scenarios, right? So what NVIDIA is doing with Omniverse is they are trying to get as much real data as possible to simulate these things and also physically simulate the environment itself. Yeah, I think let's move on with this. So you guys get the basic idea. So they're trying to create environments where they can easily train things and basically, okay, that's not. Right, cool. So that's NVIDIA with their physical AI, this thing. So some other company, that's an interesting company. Have you guys played Pokemon Go? How many have played Pokemon Go? Like, yeah, a lot. All right, cool. Every time you played Pokemon Go, you were feeding data to this guy, Niantic Spatial, right? So they were collecting all the spatial data about everywhere. So everywhere they said there's a special, something to collect. That's when they had lacking data in that region. So they wanted to guide you to get that data. So right now, I think Niantic Spatial, Niantic was not spatial. They branched off into Niantic Spatial, which is a newer company. They're focusing on native AI with all these XR and like spatial, basically. So what they've done with all your data is, all the delicious data, is that they are training robots and creating these Gaussian splats and basically using them to train all of these. So there's something called VPSs. So you can basically position yourself by looking at certain, let's say I take a picture here. You might have used this, I don't know whether this is available in Sri Lanka, but you could open up Google Maps and you can, like go into the AR mode and you can basically ask for directions, right? I think it should be available around Colombo, but in most other cities, in countries, it's available. So basically you can locate yourself from a single image. That's pretty amazing, right? So this is sort of like the intersection of AI, XR, and basically computer rendering. Yeah, that's what Niantic is doing. So with all the data, you can actually try this out. You can go to this link down there. You can try this out in your web browser. Like, it should be a laptop. It won't work in your mobile, so they have to render the Gaussian splats and all of that. So if you have a sort of like a beefy GPU, like a generally okay GPU, you should be able to run that on your web browser. So, and this is something very interesting and inspiring that I saw on LinkedIn, right? So this is where we look at sort of like escaping the matrix, right? So this is done using the MetaQuest. I just added this in here so that you guys might be inspired on what is possible with XR, right? Imagine like moving on to a different plane of existence, right? I mean, this can be used for creative work, it could be used for game development, or like, it can be even used for enterprise use case. So basically interacting with your world, with your hands, and basically stepping into another dimension or something like that. Excuse the video quality, I think I took it from LinkedIn, so yeah. So this is by Lucas Martinic. He's experimenting a lot. I'm just sharing individuals and companies that are trying to push like what is possible and what we can imagine, like in terms of creativity or in terms of technology, right? So you basically come back from that environment. So in this demo, there's another part that I've appended into this. So there's another one where you basically use gestures to like, if you use the Vision Pro, you would have seen this, but this is being done with the MetaQuest. So let's say you want to take a picture of this thing and you in this reality itself, like what you're seeing right now, you're creating a different reality, right? You're taking pictures of certain things and you're like put them on walls. You'll have a different sort of like a space that's not available in this like the reality that you exist in. So these are sort of things that's just there to like give you guys some idea, like, and hopefully inspire you all to get started with things. We are gradually moving on to sort of like what is being done. I mean, a lot of these things that have been put out there, released, are related to LLM. So like this is something very interesting that you can try out if you're trying out XR, which is vibe coding XR. This was released, I think, 1 month ago. With this, again, we don't have sound, right? Okay.
We present vibe coding XR.
Sort of you guys get the idea, right? So basically, you can use that to prototype XR experiences, right? You don't have to, have a developer. Basically, they have made a gem for Gemini that specializes in creating XR. So the cool thing about it is in the end of the demo, you can see like they create the app within the XR headset itself. You basically, talk to Gemini and you create the app within the headset itself, and then you test it out. So that's a pretty cool advancement on Google's part. But then again, it's LLMs and generative AI, right? So this is something else that comes into the LLM category, right? So we see this by an individual named Andrea on LinkedIn. So basically what they're doing is they're creating 3D blockouts and then using AI to basically create an image of it. You have a small prompt at the, I don't think you can see it. It basically says sci-fi gun and comma 3D, and you have AI strength and shape strength as sliders, so you can basically slide between them, and you can create whatever you want, but you can effectively guide the LLM to do what you want. So basically, guiding and like constricting the LLM to get what you want is what they're working on here. So this is also great because LLMs don't usually adhere to certain prompts, right? So guiding these and like basically generating the mesh itself, this is great for prototyping and just getting early prototypes out. If you're making, it can be for XR in enterprise or like game dev, you can use these, right? So moving on, that's a bit of stuff that's happening around the world, right? So people trying to advance things beyond what we are normally using. New workflows, new strategies to get around things, right? So all of that is great, but what can we take away from this, right? So like how can you leverage on these new AI techniques and everything? So in practice, what can we use? So like in my opinion, this is purely my opinion, I consider like these are tools that leverage on XR, game dev, and AI, like intersecting all together, right? So what I believe is you can use generative AI for prototyping, right? You can use it fairly okay in our experience in our company. We use generative AI for prototyping, but beyond that, I don't think that's a very good like a investment, right? Because with the prices of AI going high, and also I would advocate that you can, if you can, use local LLMs, because cloud LLMs are going to be expensive, and use XR blocks. We are in the XR space, so we use those. And recently, Unity added AI MCP support. How many of you guys tried out AI MCP on Unity? Oh, there's one person. How was the experience? Okay, cool. So try that out, right? You use the latest, be on edge. So finally, boring work that you need to automate, scripting, documentation work, or like basically if you don't know something, it's best you can learn the fundamentals from AI, because if you think about how AI works, it's trained on a lot of data. You can easily learn the fundamentals in an interactive manner with an LLM. So that's something where you can apply AI, right? So moving on from those, so the takeaways from my keynote. What are you going to take away home from this? I would say that AI is not optional, right? So it's a matter of how you use it. I would advocate using local LLMs with the whole the infrastructure and the pricing costs that's happening right now. If you can install local LLMs, go for it. That's the best way to experience and build around your workflows, right? And I would also argue that the XR shift runs deeper than the hardware that's provided, right? So what you're seeing is multiple companies trying to advance. It's a little bit muddied, right? Because you're not seeing a lot of news on XR because of the whole AI situation, right? But XR is combining with AI as we speak, right? We see trends on that, and it will keep on. Like it's not like a hype train, like where it'll be a bubble and it will pop, right? Because XR has been there since the beginning. If you look at blockchain and AI, these have been like things that people hyped up about and then jumped on it, right? But XR has been steadily improving as we speak. So, and if you think about early adoption, like we would, I would say ZXC is an early adopter of XR, right? Because we are, I'm not sure whether there's anyone in Sri Lanka who's developing for AR glasses, but we are developing for AR glasses applications. So everyone being informed helped without being unprepared, right? So you should know, if you're in this field, you need to know what, like what's up to date and what's not, because otherwise you'll be left behind with others who are up to date, right? So my advice is find one workflow that you're doing, apply AI to it and start there, right? There's some memes here, you know, XR and AI is inevitable. So yeah, that's about it, guys. So we can talk, and you can, if you want to learn more about me or my company, there's some QR codes you can scan. Yeah, I'm open to questions. Oh, yeah, yes.
Someone who wants to get into the XR and these type of things, where do you recommend that we should start?
So if you're starting out with XR, I think, do you have a headset or something? All right, okay. So yeah, with that's a good starting point. You can start with Android XR, basically with the cardboard, Google Cardboard thing you can use with your own device if you don't have that. Basically, I would say XR Blocks is a great starting point, because you can basically converse with it, and you'll have a starting point. You can basically say, okay, look, give me a simple XR experience, you know, to learn about the, let's say, interactions of it. So just to dive in deep a little bit about this tech, the XR Blocks basically behind the scenes uses 3JS and WebXR technology, right? So if you are to learn about those, the best thing right now is use XR Blocks. Ask for a simple sample project. Keep on asking questions about it. How is this working? How is that working? That way you can learn way faster than if you went for like looking at YouTube tutorials. That would, I mean, that's also a way to go about it. But I think AI is good at giving you an understanding about like basic understanding about things, foundation level. Is reinforcement learning happening in Sri Lanka? Well, it's happening in our company. Well, kind of yes, I guess. So we are training certain things to use computer vision. Let's say to detect anomalies in certain things, in certain processes. We use reinforcement learning, let's say, to detect a certain object. Let's say I want to detect that exact chair. I would be using reinforcement learning, putting a lot of images around this chair, like around it, over it, like taking images. Yes, I would say per my experience, we are using reinforcement learning for specific use cases, yes.
So do you think it's possible to like gain a lot of attraction on the XR market in Sri Lanka, depending like because of how expensive how equipment and whatnot?
So Sri Lanka is very, I mean, I would, if you look at the game dev community, I mean, it's a very niche community, right? And when it comes to XR, it's even more niche. Like if you're building XR products, it's best if you can, you know, go for other markets. You stay here and you develop for other markets. That's where the value is at. I mean, outsourcing is basically the way to go, because if they were to develop in their own markets, it would be very costly. So that's the basic business model all the software companies in Sri Lanka are running on, right? So your best bet is to serve other regions, not for Sri Lanka. I mean, maybe somewhere down the line when living standards rise, people will be able to buy more things. But again, some people are willing to buy certain things like AR glasses. When they become mainstream, then yes, but it's still growing. But not in Sri Lanka, I think. I've seen certain people. I saw someone wearing Meta Ray-Bans in the event itself. So yeah, it is there, but not that much. Your best bet is other regions. All right. Any more questions? Time is up. All right. Thank you, guys.